Good morning. It's good to see you. I just want to take a minute this morning for us to breathe. I think that not breathe because of anything, just breathe. Just giving ourselves time to settle into our time together. I want to start by saying how much I appreciate this time. Ever since I did the work of slowed down time and was able to be in that kind of course for that period of time with people, I've had this access to stillness, like very similar to just letting the world pass you by, and you're just tending to what's yours to do, and not caught in the affairs of the world, or even in the affairs of the people around you. There is this capacity now to be in the slowed down time of minute moments of now. As usual, prior to Friday Facebook call, and also the Realms of the Beloved, I often have a significant dream. Yesterday I had a seriously significant dream. I didn't even know I was dreaming. I once had a friend, my Anamkara, his name was Niall, and we were the only two creatures in my life that I had a physical intimacy with that matched a world, a realm that I knew and know, was my dog Lily and Niall. And there was a way that he bead with me that like where you could blend, the bodies could blend into each other. And I'm not talking sexually. That's different. And Lily was like that. She'd curl up in my belly and against my belly at night when I rolled it on my side, and we'd blend. It's an extraordinary thing. For me, I think it's the true tantric, not the gratification of sexuality. So night before last, I had a visit. I didn't even know I was dreaming. That was the part that was so amazing. But talking about slowed down time, there's a way. Niall used to walk up behind me, and he'd take my hands and push them straight down, and then wrap his hands and his arms and my arms around me together, and we just stand there, either looking out on the cliffs of Moher or the beach in Ireland, or I don't know, the city street. It didn't really matter. But it was this blending. And it was so great in the dream because it could last forever. I didn't have to, there was no urgency to get to the dishes. There wasn't an urgency to do anything but what I was doing. And somehow there's this peeling away, like when you peel away a bandage and the skin is tender underneath, and but it's new skin. It's new, and that's this state of affairs that I keep noticing myself in, between my waking state and my non-waking state. And it seems to be coming in waves, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, from today. You know, I was where the Band-Aid had been pulled off in the memory of loss, which is really what there is to, I'm going to say heal, but I would like to distinguish what I mean by that word. But just the loss of having nobody that could see my fairies and help me dress them, no humans. And I remember when Frank, our gardener, I remember him coming yelling in the door and then seeing my mother and stopping short and looking at me and running back out the door because he had been gardening, and Tomsy was about that big. Tomsy came up in his face. Frank saw Tomsy, never saw the fairies. And it's just become clearer and clearer that it's not the loss of a thing. It's the loneliness of something. There's a loneliness that humanity has carried within their shared soul for a very long time. And I think what's healing is that loneliness. It's why I work in etheric territory, because it's that territory of spirit, not the mental mind, not the human world, but it's the territory of spirit where we're never lonely, because we're inspirited in our shared soul. So something's been peeling away. I'd like for you to look at it for yourself, because I have noticed there have been these deep anguishes that are more like eruptions or releases that people around me have been going through. But on the other side of it seems to be deeper connection, sometimes elation, sometimes a sense of intimacy that is just bloody relaxing to have it back again. Not intimacy like eroticness, although there's an element of that when you let your heart burst open and your gut sing, but not in the sense of, it's the thing about sexuality is there's an end to the act, but there's no end to intimacy. There's no end to connection. There's no end to that deep loving. So after that Facebook Live I did, I had a really interesting week of pretty much being teary the whole week without meaning, without attaching it to anything. It was a body release. That's the difference. There are thoughts that trigger human emotions, justified or unjustified, real or unreal. But there's another phenomenon of the body, where the body cries, which is just releasing. I once led an entire, I think 3 days, I have to ask Georgia. I once led a course over a long period of time, 1 to 3 days, where pretty much I was crying the whole time, but I wasn't gut wrenching. It's just that this loneliness that I would call it, that I wouldn't have called it that then, but this loneliness was upon the room, and I was experiencing it. So that led me to this past Friday after I finished our time together. Then I went to get a massage, and I've been having trouble with my hip and my lungs since I had COVID. I think this is a really important share for you, because it isn't that we don't have the same issues. It's just different when a reality, this framework of realities of union or of unity arising, they go through a recursion towards wholeness, not a constant collapse into the abyss or the debris of loneliness or pain or hardship or difficulty in my case with my lungs and my body and my walking. So this beautiful woman, Nikki, was giving me a massage, and just again the loneliness for my body's ability to function again. Lillian, I used to walk 2 hours a day for 3 to 5 days a week, and I couldn't even do 20 minutes since at this higher altitude. I went from 3,000 feet to 5,500, and it shows. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because we're in a recursion. And I want to tell a personal story because I'm not the only one. And a recursion is where you move through something and it seems to move you into I call it the next greater whole, or we could say past the barrier, past the difficulty. It seems to move into a more complete or more linking moments or connection. Something that seems to link up would be how I would say it. Something that we've been lonely for. Now, I'm not going to use words. I'm trying to be colorful with words so that we don't get stuck in definition. So I started crying on the table. I was really surprised, just the loss of function, and just bled through. And just a cute anecdote. She asked me if I'd be willing to talk to a man named, I have to get it right, Herb, that deals in herbs, and who's been supporting people who have had post-COVID symptoms. And I said to her, what's his gig, chiropractor, doctor? And she says, it's really hard to say what Herb is. I think he's a wizard. And I said, I do really well with wizards. So I came out of my massage and went straight into an appointment. I've been using some products that are clearly, like when I started with Dr. Chari, that clearly build me back from the inside out, from the core of the body's core, not the muscle core, the cellular core. And we do have products out there now that rebuild the cellular strength. We do, which is beautiful. And I have the good fortune to I'm in that train station where people pass by and let me know about them. And the Amida body does really well with very high purified products. Doesn't do well with suppressed symptoms products or something that has been diluted. But it has to be really a high rarefication, a high frequency base. So I was meeting with this beautiful woman, Liz, who works with geriatric patients and in hospitals and nutrition. And it wasn't what we talked about, which was fun, actually. Fun. And I already had some ideas, and she just gave me how much protein to eat and what some of the products in Health Force I was taking that seemed to be giving my cells back their elasticity and their strength to rebuild themselves. It was her kindness. It was her kindness. She was so kind to me, not condescending, not, now honey, let's get that blanket tucked around your neck. Just genuinely, angelically kind. And when I got off the phone, I couldn't quit crying. And I'm a cellular empath, which means sometimes I'm part of the, well, we all are, but I don't know how to phrase this well. Sometimes we're part of a larger, we're always part of a larger story, but sometimes the wave of the collective story we become part of for no reason. We're having a great day, suddenly the anguish of the world is upon us. And if we could be holy or spiritual about that, really, genuinely spiritual, really, really embrace our emotional palette, then we're part of the release. If we release, there's a young boy or a young girl that is releasing at the same time, because we carry a shared soul, and that maybe they wouldn't have been able to if a bunch of us weren't able to trigger the quantum nature of our connection to make room for something I call paradise. So I went to sleep at 10 that night, I remember, and I began to have nightmares, serious nightmares, nightmares that are life-defeating, nightmares that are self-debilitating, nightmares that hit at the core of the weaknesses of your own personality structure. But I'd read a book a long time ago, which I highly recommend, The Kin of Atta, K-I-N, of Atta, A-T-A, are Waiting for You. And they had a practice called Holka, H-O-L-K-A. And it's very similar to what I've done my whole life. Anytime I'm in a hit, it's like a sacred moment for me, and I make room for it. I sit with it until my body can process out the impact of the situation or the impact of what has come upon me. But I never thought about using your dream state, which is benign, basically. There's nothing that can happen to you there, to actually dream out the nightmares that were pressing themselves through releasing in my cellular system. And that is the core of the conversation today, is that we must trust our emotional palette. We mustn't think it is giving us an indicator about our lives. It's just I keep wanting to say it's in catch and release, but it is in a way. It's like we're catching, where we get caught in something, we experience something that's caught in our cellular memory. And the only way the body can release is through emotion. That's how it releases. So we are in catch and release. We're catching into prior memories, and we wouldn't be in release if it wasn't making room for something. I can really promise you that. But this is the first time at this level I'd ever had the capacity that you know how you wake up for a nightmare and you try to shake it off, and you go take a shower, or you go get something to eat, or you go walk it out. And I was determined not to. I really felt like if I could keep deep diving, and if I could keep going into the debris of the things, and I just started using the word lonely today, but that made me so lonely, this place so alien, this place so devoid of life in its expression. So I kept, every time I'd wake up, I'd force myself back to sleep, and for 12 hours, because I woke up at 10. I usually wake up at between 5 and 6. I forced myself back into the tissue of the nightmares over and over and over again. And they bordered right on panic attack, and they definitely were connected to terror. Unreasonable terror. Wasn't anything that you would normally think was terrifying, but the way it was held in the body, the way it was held in the cellular memory, this loneliness of being conditioned to have to always survive, to never be free of fear of survival, to never be free to live, just live, was upon me. So at 10 a.m., I woke and felt pretty wrung out, like a dish rag. But I was and you do feel that way because you've been in a release. Your cells are empty. That's why I really love micronutrients in the body. I love micronutrients in the body. I'm a cellular empath, so doctors and practitioners always are flabbergasted at how well I can read my own body. Even when Lily died, the doctors were shocked that I knew she was dying. I knew something was wrong, and it was something they would have never expected, a tumor on her spleen. It was bleeding. So I have this body relationship that I don't address or talk to people about, but it is very real. My body is a living being that has become incarcerated in cellular debris, trying to help me survive in a reality that has a certain level of being devoid of life and forces real or unreal me into mindsets and emotional debris that has me always checking to see if I'm okay, if I'm going to make it, if I'm going to be all right. And early on in my childhood, I knew something was really off about that. And I used to tell Papa Kent, why am I in hell? Because I knew that wasn't paradise. It wasn't heaven. I knew it wasn't heaven. So that brings you to Saturday. And then I worked a lot the last few days, but my dream state began to see, here's the part I don't know how to tell you. I don't know how to bring it. I made the topic today, a short life, because we usually live a little under 100 years old. And we're actually designed to live for 200 years. So we have a short shelf life. And I think that also bothers us. That somehow we know that our bodies are giving in before their time. So for me, the ability to, let me just use my example, to find these micronutrients made of the earth, and the ability for the micronutrients to begin to revive the cellular structure so that I can release debris. So if you ever washed a shirt that was starched, if you ever wash it, there's loads of garbage in the shirt. But when you wash the starch out, we call it trauma armoring, then the cotton shirt is soft and beautiful and lovely. And we have trauma armoring, and there is an experience happening in human beings. Not all human beings. Some human beings are in the reactionary part of the attempt to release the trauma. But there's a response release too, which probably anchors itself in trusting life. Not circumstance, but life. And trusting what created us. Creation-based consciousness versus survival-based consciousness. I've been recommending everybody go back and read Language of Creation again. And one of the first people that bought it that had never met me, I couldn't believe it, how thank God I have this weird name, found me. And he said, wow, you didn't have to demonstrate that the whole world is either a reality of unity or a reality of separation to promote your book. But I knew when I wrote the book and did the classes and taught the creation exercises that it's for these times. It's when we are navigating our way out of the dissolving of trauma armoring and holding true to, I'm going to say, our love of paradise, our love of what's life fulfilling and life enhancing. And even if we don't know what it is, that we're committed to its possibility. Deb and I designed something called a therapeutic model called composition of potentiality. A way to, and then Heather and I have designed something because we're going to offer twice a month people to go through the new book, Mind of Creation. And because we need new mindsets, we need to be able to think through our sentience, our empathy, our mental perception, to not be caught in a survival model. So that'll be fun. And of course, I have the once a month for those that actually see the value of awakening as a collective consciousness. We've been pretty inundated with only awakening as an individual consciousness, which is actually impossible. But it sure kept people chasing their tail, like Leanna's dog Kevin, long enough. And so it's a good day. We're in a process. We're proceeding through a recursion. Always I recommend the creation exercises. Just because we can be our own mentors now. We can live on behalf of life and what has us exist as whole now. We have enough strength, stamina, capacity for our physical body to release the cellular debris of trauma armoring and have a new palette of connection and connection ends loneliness. It's just that simple. That's why I've never been lonely at an ontological level, because I feel the etheric beings that I move with, and I feel the larger systems of reality of which I'm a part. It's what makes me officially a mystic, by the way. But loneliness in the area of human being, it's been rough. It's been rough for everybody, for all of us. We haven't reached a saturation point. You know, there's when 2 nights ago happened, and I was in this place with Niall. It was so great because that saturation point was reached. That blending with Lily, that blending was reached. That's a saturation point. It's a point where our molecules and our particles and our atoms are unrestricted. In other words, they're not restricted by the illusion of form. And the form gives way to the unity of the formless. And it is my prayer. There's many of you who have people who have passed on. We have a lot of people dying. Kind of the ratio is accelerated of the percentage of people dying. But what if we could get back to we're never separated from each other? That we're in the blending of the formlessness of ourselves. That it's ecstatic. I've got to find out from Heather or someone the opposite of adrenaline. Because adrenaline causes reaction. I know oxytocin is part of what creates safety, the safety of the womb. I did it in the activation Wednesday night. But we could say that, even if we don't know the term, we're so hooked on terms. I think if we know the term, we'll know the answer. It's not how it works. but there is something releasing in the body, and somehow the stillness that the disease, we call it the mother's virus, that's come upon humanity as an evolutionary possibility. Somehow we have, remember, so many of us in the beginning, we were so grateful almost and calm, and there was a different reaction than we expected. It's a little bit more unnerving now because we're moving into the thick of it, where she's reproducing in multiple forms. And but the point I want to make is that 2 nights ago I got to be with my father and my ex-lover, my now dead lover. I guess you would say he's not my ex, and a person from another community. And it was one of the richest, most intimate, most profound experiences I've had in my life, because there was no separation. It was just as physical as me sitting here talking to you, but it was I could absorb it. I could reach a saturation point of fulfillment and connection and unity and oneness, that particle field we are together, that Deepak Chopra talks about it well, and others. But not to seek it in the thingness of the world, but to seek it as a register within ourselves, to restore a register of union within ourselves, because it's right there. It's right there. It's absorbed. It's saturating the world again. Every act of kindness that humanity has generated since this pandemic occurred has literally been reducing the trauma armoring in human being, because before then there wasn't as much drive for kindness. But what if we maintained it? What if we maintain this empathic nature of ours, where we could blend with our union of being, not an I sharing its soul, but a being that is part of a one soul. So slowly but surely, in this arc I went through, starting with my bleed off and sadness about my fairies. My roommate, however, my housemate, she sees fairies. She paints them. She's a fairy person, being. So isn't that amazing that she's in my household? Isn't that remarkable? Another being that lives in union with the elemental world. I mean, how great is that? I don't want another dog, but I'm Kevin, my daughter's dog's grandmother. So when he sleeps at me at night, it satisfies something that I tactilely need, that I had with Lily. You see, paradise comes in strange and mysterious ways, but it is leaking into the human reality now. It is bleeding into our dreams. Our emotional palette is waking up. There isn't just sadness. There isn't just fear. Remember, ecstasy and agony register exactly the same on the biofeedback. It's just the thoughts that come with it. But then the body sometimes just needs to cry. And the last piece I want to, this person that calls me every time I'm in the middle of a Zoom call or in the middle of a Facebook Live. And so, talk about impeccable synchronic timing, not. It's funny. So the point is that I think we should work on our longevity. That's really the point of my conversation. Why not? And how do you do that? I think you trust what's going on. And then I think you give your body, whatever how it works for you, the ability to, because the cells are what hold the unity base between your spirit and your flesh. It's your cells. And if we go on the side of giving ourselves the ability to build their strength, stamina, and capacity, micronutrients, look it up, do your research, then we give the cellular memory a chance to release, because we were born into a trauma-based world. I'm 74, so just circumstantially, I was born right after the Second World War and during the Korean War, or near it somehow. So I just want us to take it on. I just think it'd be cool. I think it'd be full of magic. I think you might be able to be with your ex-lover. I hate to call him that, but I'll try to think of a better word. Your father, and a man you respect deeply that has passed on in flesh, but gets to be available to you in spirit. And then Lily, of course, who is curled up at my feet. So it's just a very specific moment in time that we're in, a beautiful moment in time. And I know I keep saying it's 6 years, but I've been accurate about time for a long time. And so we have to have a project. I think the project should be the restoration of our cellular capacity to let the body bleed off the trauma armoring so that we can open up into a brand new day. I'm going to leave early today because I'm pretty sure communication has gotten weird the last 24 hours. And I'm pretty sure I just got a phone call from the man who's going to be putting in my drip line so that in the summer I can have a beautiful paradise in my backyard. And I had to get him before he got busy in the summer. So I said for him to text me when he was here, but instead he called me. So I need to go, and thank you all. And if you want to stay online, and not online, but on Facebook and post for each other, it's together that we rebuild ourselves, not apart. Namaste.